Everyone knows this story, coders, because that's how they told it to us since we were children. And behold, I myself am bringing floodwaters upon the earth. Genesis 6:17. A gigantic ark, a righteous man, a divine punishment, and a flood that erased everything. That's what everyone believes. That's what everyone was taught. But what if it wasn't like that? What if the flood wasn't a moral punishment, but a programmed reset? Because here appears the detail no one mentions, coders, the detail that changes everything. Long before Noah, long before Genesis, the Sumerians had already told this story thousands of years earlier. They were already speaking of a man called Ziusudra, or Atrahasis, the first to build a boat to survive a global flood. And in that ancient version, raw and far less moralized, the flood is not sent by a god offended by human sin. It is ordered by someone called Enlil, a being who could not stand the noise, the growth, nor the awakening of humanity.
Coders, why would a supposedly good god want to wipe out his own creation? Why destroy entire cities? Why wipe out whole generations? Why erase complete cultures as if they were a mistake or a corrupted file? And even more unsettling, why, in that ancient story, does another being, Enki, break the rules to save humanity? The same pattern, the same tension, the same two sides we already met in Eden. One who forbids, another who protects. One who punishes, another who warns. One who wants to control human destiny, another who wants to preserve it. Coders, the flood was not an accident. It wasn't spontaneous rain. It wasn't divine morality. It was a reset. Because if the Eden episode turned on consciousness, the flood was the attempt to turn it off.
Genesis, the original Hebrew text, says it without hiding it. My spirit shall not contend with man forever. His days shall be 120 years. Genesis 6:3. A limit, a reduction, a modification. In Sumer, they say it another way. The human race must be controlled. Atrahasis, Tablet Y. Why? What had changed? What were those who decided to wipe out the world really afraid of? Coders, we were told that the flood was a punishment for wickedness. But the oldest tablets, those that existed before the Bible, say something very different. Humanity was reset because it was evolving too fast. Is this the true story of the flood? A natural event or an intervention? We're going to find out.
A flood in every corner of the world. Coders, when a story appears once, it's a myth. When it appears all over the planet, it's memory. The flood does not originate in the Bible. It is a global memory. Long before Noah, the Sumerians were already speaking of Ziusudra, or Atrahasis, saved from a flood ordered by Enlil. It wasn't rain, it wasn't a local event, it was a reset. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim says, the gods decided to destroy mankind. Not one god, several, a council. And the pattern repeats. One gives the order, another secretly warns a sealed boat and a survivor to begin again. The same conflict we already saw between Enki and Enlil in Eden. One limits, the other awakens. The surprise, the entire world remembers the same thing. India, Vishnu warns Manu. Greece, Zeus destroys, Deucalion builds an ark. Mesoamerica, Coxcox and Xochiquetzal survive. China, Nua saves humanity. Coders, when all peoples tell the same event, it's not just a symbol, it's ancestral memory. Something happened, something huge, something that left a scar. The Bible confirms it without softening it. How regretted having made man, and decided to destroy him. Genesis 6:6-7. But here comes the forbidden question. How can someone perfect regret? What changed? What went off plan? In the previous video, Eden gave us the clue. The man has become like one of us. Genesis 3:22. After awakening came fear. After fear came the decision. Sumer is more direct. It wasn't sin, it was loss of control. The tablets say humanity multiplied, made noise, and was no longer controllable. It's not morality, it's management. The human project went off plan. And what the Anunnaki do is the same as what a programmer does when the system fails. Reset. The flood was not punishment. It was a reset. And the world remembers it. But the question that remains is the real bomb. What did they want to erase? And who decided to secretly save us?
The real motive behind the reset coders before the flood. Humanity was not like us. The Bible says it clearly in its own Hebrew text that the patriarchs lived for centuries. Adam, 930 years; Methuselah, 969; Noah, 950, Genesis 5-9. And here comes the fact that shatters the traditional narrative. In Sumer, exactly the same thing happens. The Sumerian king list, much older than Genesis, says that its antediluvian kings ruled for thousands of years. Not decades, not a few generations, thousands. Coders. When two such different cultures tell the same thing, it's not just myth, it's echo, it's memory. So, what went wrong? Why reset a humanity like that? This is where the famous Nephilim appear. But pay attention, coders. We already have a full video about the Nephilim on the channel. We're not going to repeat it. We'll just take the key point. Genesis says, there were Nephilim on the earth, Genesis 6:4, right before the flood. The text doesn't speak of demons, it doesn't talk about spirits. It simply says, Nephilim, the fallen, those who descended, mixed beings, beings that were not supposed to exist. In other words, something was interfering with human biology. And in Sumer, the trigger is even more direct. In Atrahasis, older than the Bible, the gods do not complain about sin. They don't say humanity is evil. They say humanity is too many. Humanity makes noise. Humanity does not obey. Coders, that's not theology, that's control. Enlil didn't see wickedness. He saw growth. He saw uncontrolled evolution. And when a humanity that lives for centuries learns too much, remembers too much, progresses too much, it becomes a threat to those who control it. The Bible and Sumer agree on a single point. After the flood, something was reduced. Genesis says it directly. His days shall be 120 years. Genesis 6:3. A limit, a reduction, a cut. And after the flood, biblical ages collapsed dramatically. It's as if someone had modified the design. A moral punishment? No, coders. An adjustment, a reset. In both accounts, Hebrew and Sumerian, the flood appears as a reset of the human project, a reduction of capacities, a correction of the experiment. It didn't rain just because. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't religious. It was a biological reset.
Enki, the divine sabotage. Coders. If there's something that defines the Anunnaki flood, it's not the water. It's the betrayal. Not human betrayal. Betrayal between gods. Because according to the Sumerian tablets, the flood was not a surprise. It was an order. Enlil, the same one who in Eden wanted to limit humans, decides to wipe out humanity. Not because of sin, not because of corruption, not because of rebellion. Because of noise, because of growth, because of evolutionary disobedience. The original texts say, The noise of mankind is unbearable. Atrahasis, Tablet 1. In other words, humanity was advancing too fast, too intelligent, too conscious. The same fear we saw in Eden. The man has become like one of us. Genesis 3:22. But then the unexpected happens. Enki breaks the plan, Kodos. This is the moment where the story splits in two. While Enlil prepares to erase humanity, Enki does the impossible. He leaks information, breaks the oath, warns a human. In the Bible, they call him Noah in Sumer. They call him Atrahasis or Ziusudra. And in every version, the message is the same. Build a boat. Not a mystical ark, not a symbol. A real boat, sealed with pitch, designed to survive a catastrophic flood. The Sumerian text itself says, "I will break my oath and speak through a wall of reeds." Enki, in other words, Enki betrays the divine counsel to save us. But why would Enki save a humanity that was out of control? This is where the mystery enters, guys. Enki was always the patron of knowledge, the teacher, the awakener, the one who opens eyes. The same one that, in our previous sagas, we identified as the serpent of Eden. While Enlil represents order, control, limits, Enki represents evolution, creativity, consciousness. They are two models of creation, two visions for the human purpose. And the flood was not a moral punishment. It was the final clash between those two visions. The texts say it without sugarcoating it. When Enlil discovers that Enki saved humanity, he exclaims, "How did man survive? No one was supposed to live." Atrahasis, Tablet 3. Coders, that doesn't sound like a divine punishment. It sounds like a project that was supposed to be erased. And Enki sabotaged it. The Bible reflects this inner war, but softened. Genesis speaks of one God who decides to reset the world, and another who instructs Noah to save it. But in the original Hebrew text, the word used several times is not God, singular, it is Elohim, plural. Let us make man. He has become like one of us. Genesis 1:26/3:22. Coders, that fits a little too well with the Enki-Enlil conflict in the tablets. The legacy of the flood, the world after the reset. Coders, the flood didn't just change the world, it changed humanity's purpose, a reset planet. After the waters recede, the Bible says the earth was laid waste. Genesis 7:23. It's not a metaphor, it's a blank canvas. A reset planet to start again, with a different humanity, a reduced humanity. Before the flood, intake of knowledge, longevity, expansion. After the flood, limitation, obedience, reconstruction. The human project was restarted in its most controlled version, new biological rules. Before the flood, humans were almost indestructible. Afterwards, early death, less strength, less time to develop knowledge. Coders, this is not coincidence, it's engineering. The division of lineages. The Bible says that after the flood, new peoples, new tongues, new nations emerge. In Sumer, exactly the same thing appears. New dynasties created after the flood, with short-lived kings. This marks the beginning of post-Anunnaki humanity, the one that no longer has access to the original design. The fragmented memory of the world. The most curious thing is that all cultures remember the flood, but none remember clearly what happened before the flood. It's as if a hand had cut human memory. India speaks of a golden age, the Maya, of a previous world destroyed by water, the Greeks, of an earlier race, more powerful. They all tell the same thing. Something existed before, but it was erased. The alteration of human purpose. Before the flood, humans seemed designed to learn, create, expand. After the flood, they seemed designed to survive. That change didn't come from the earth, it came from above. The mark of the Enki-Enlil conflict is still here. The flood did not end the war, it only froze it. Enlil managed to limit humans, Enki managed to preserve them. Two visions. One, humanity divided between what we were and what we could still become. The real legacy of the flood, humanity 2.0, humanity after the flood, was no longer a pure creation. It was a corrected version. A reduced design, a limited potential, a fragmented memory. But we remained alive because someone, Enki, decided to save us. Compact conclusion. The flood was not the end. It was the beginning of humanity as we know it. Short-lived, limited, fragile, but conscious. The reset took power away from us, but it left us the spark of awakening. And that spark is precisely what, even today, they are still trying to control.